We're going to go ahead and get started because I know we've got a pretty tight schedule for today. So my name is Carlson. I'm one of the advisors for the Ag EcoReps. I've had the privilege of working with this group since its beginning back in 2010. And so it's been just a little under 9 years that we've been working together on the organization. And I just want to say thank you guys for making the time to be here today because it's really important for us, obviously, to give you the information so that you guys can go out into the halls and make a difference for our residents across campus. So thank you guys for being here and making the time. The good news is you don't have to watch the videos, which are a lot more difficult to keep up with, and you have a quiz and all these other things. So you got the easy route for today. But we're going to talk a little bit about sustainability more in depth. One of the reasons why we're here at the retreat is obviously we want to dispel some myths, but we also want to give you guys some tools and resources that you can use to have discussion. So that way, when you're asked questions about sustainability, you kind of know what to say and you know where to point people as far as resources are concerned and that sort of thing, which can be really helpful as well. All right, so I know we talked a little bit about the 3 pillars of sustainability. Des kind of went over those pieces, but you can see, and this has been in our meeting slides several times for our meetings as well. Really, the sustainability aspect comes from the overlap of the environmental, the social, and the economic spheres or pillars of sustainability. That's kind of what we're shooting for, right? And if we only have some of those things overlapping with each other, we're not quite getting to the ideal situation. We're getting to things that we can kind of deal with. And we're going to talk about sustainability not as an end goal, but as a process as we move forward. And it's something that we definitely have to work towards in order to be able to get everybody on board through all of those pillars kind of moving forward. Okay, so the one thing that I wanted to share with you guys is that sustainability is actually at the heart of everything we do. Our hope is that being sustainable means that we are literally sustaining life. And so every aspect that is part of the human experience connects back to sustainability. It's not a cliche, it's not a topic area that you focus on every once in a while. Literally everything contributes back to what we do for sustainability. And it's, like I said before, it's not a goal, it's a process. So we have to understand how those pieces work together in order for us to understand how things sustain themselves over a long period of time. This definitely does require some reassessment and adjustment. As Des was talking about earlier in her presentation, I think one of the pieces that we kind of fail on is understanding the connection between the social and the economic and the environmental. And each one of those things we can work on, but if we don't work across all of those different functional areas, then we're not truly achieving kind of our sustainable growth and development. Another piece too, so the third bullet down says every decision regarding sustainable practice is a compromise and not a solution. I think many times when we talk about sustainability, we say, well, this is the way it needs to be done, and if you do this, you're bad, and if you do this, you're good. That's not actually being sustainable. It's an understanding of the balance that everybody and everything has together to be able to achieve long-term growth and sustainability. And so I think one of the pieces that a lot of folks feel is guilt when it comes to sustainability. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, or if I don't recycle this bottle, or if I don't turn my shower off after 5 minutes, or I drive a truck, or whatever it may be, yes, all of those factors absolutely contribute to increasing your carbon footprint and making an impact on the world in a negative way. However, we're not asking you to end all of those things today. We're asking you to be mindful of what those pieces are and how you can get to a place that is going to be more sustainable in the long haul, and at the same time, hopefully impact those that are around you too. So that if some of those unsustainable practices are no longer occurring, now everybody else is on the same framework with you. It's not confined to one academic class or interest group. Obviously, we all live on this earth together. This is the only earth we got, right? So we want to make sure that everybody feels like they're contributing back to what we're doing. And I think what Yadira talked about is really relevant because you see in many of those developing countries, they're actually contributing the raw materials and sources that we use in fair trade markets to be able to provide to consumers. And if we don't have those developing countries contributing, then our prices are going to be skewed and production is going to be skewed, and we're going to see an increase in the cost that's associated with some of those pieces. But the big thing that sustainability requires is obviously 2 things, education and advocacy. Okay, so when you think about education, that's what we're doing here today. We're actually going through the process of giving you the information about sustainability, that when people ask you those questions, you can say, yeah, it's more than just recycling. It's more than just turning off the lights. It's more than just cutting off the water a little bit early. And also thinking about the advocacy piece. And so that's what we're going to be doing throughout the course of this year. Us going out and doing programs together, us going into the halls and doing presentations, us contributing to the discussion in social media and online about how we can be more sustainable. Those are all pieces that we can do to show our advocacy towards the cause. And so if we truly want to make a change, we have to be able to do both of those. And really honestly, the education and the advocacy piece never stop. If you're truly passionate about this area, and this is something that you have great interest in, you should always be taking on learning. Okay? I know we're about to go to the ASHE conference again over the course of this year. This is my 7th ASHE conference. And I could say, oh, I've been there, done that. I don't need to know any more information about sustainability. I got everything I need to know. But the reality is, I know in order for me to continue to be the best advisor for this organization and to provide the best information for my students, I need to stay up on those trends. I need to be educated. And so, yes, we're doing a one-day retreat here with you guys today, but this won't be the only time that we're going to do education for you throughout the course of the year. We're going to do it in every single one of our meetings. There's going to be education that occurs in the events that we participate in, and you're going to have a chance to connect with those residents and be an advocate for sustainability. All right, so one of the things that I always like to talk about when it comes to sustainability is, what does that look like here at Texas A&M? Okay, we actually have some really great bridges, but we also have some really great barriers here as well. And so when you think about this campus environment, one of the original things that kind of comes to mind is just the size and scope of our institution. Okay, there are not many institutions that can say we have 69,000 students that are enrolled on campus. Actually, this year we are the #1 institution in the United States of America for total number of enrollees. We are the largest. So when it comes to every other institution in the country, when it comes to size, they're looking at us. They're looking at our impact and what we're doing here. And when you have so many folks, that's a lot of people to go out and reach when it comes to talking about sustainability. We also have a pretty bureaucratic system for making decisions. So it's not just that our president says, hey, do this thing, and everybody does it, right? There are committees, and there is the Board of Regents, and then there are business leaders, and donors, and former students, and families, and all these people that are influencing different folks across campus, and that makes it tough, because now we don't have one body to work through. Now we have to work through all of these different areas. And so for you guys as students, one of the most important things that you can do is to rally the student voice, because you're the main consumer on this campus. And if the consumers aren't happy with what is going on campus, just like our voting system, we need you to speak up. We need you to show that piece and say to those campus leaders, I'm the student here. I don't feel like my voice is being heard on the topic of sustainability. Here's what I feel like we need to do. Here's what I feel like we can advocate for, and make that voice be heard. Okay, that takes us out of being a cliche group into becoming the mainstream culture of what this campus looks like. Okay, conservative roots. Okay, who here would identify as a conservative? If I was to ask you the question, if you're a conservative or a liberal, who would say you're a conservative? Absolutely, be proud. That's okay. Okay, this is not a bad versus good situation. Okay, conservative ideology has a lot of really fantastic principles that play into sustainability, right? Specifically when we talk about how we manage our resources and how we're thoughtful about the decisions that we make in purchasing decisions, conservative ideology is the goal. That is actually where we want to be. But I think many times when we think about sustainability, we think, well, that's a liberal agenda. Okay, so in order for me to be caring about the earth and to be pushing forward on the idea of sustainability, I have to be a liberal. Well, what if I don't identify that way? Does that mean sustainability is not for me? Well, if you remember back, again, we all live on one earth. This is all we got, right? We can't transport ourselves to Mars yet. Okay, hopefully we can stay here and make sure that this earth is what we're able to sustain kind of moving forward. But those aspects of working together requires that conservative folks and liberal folks come together towards one unified voice, which is how can we protect our world, how can we protect our resources, how can we support those that are coming from underrepresented populations to be able to find sustainability in all of those different factors and not just in one. Okay? Some of the opportunities that we have, obviously, you know, Texas A&M loves their student leadership opportunities. You guys are here as student leaders who were elected in Hall or who decided to step up and take, you know, 4 hours of your Saturday afternoon when you could be doing many other things to sit and talk about sustainability. And this is exactly the principle that makes Texas A&M so unique. Without your engagement, without your support, then there would be no movement, right? And so I want to thank you again for being here, because by and large, you guys engaging in this information means that you're going to go out and impact 5, 10, 15, 20 other people with the information that you learned here today, even if it's just in casual conversation. And those folks will benefit by virtue of you being in this room today for the information that we're covering. Okay? Campus traditions. Okay, we are great at making Texas A&M feel a lot smaller than it really is, right? Okay, who here really enjoys Midnight Y'all? Beautiful. How about Silver Taps? How about Aggie Mustard? How about Gig 'em? Or Howdy? Right? Okay, all of those things, when I say that out to you guys, literally everybody has a smile on your face, right? If you don't, then you're what I refer to as a bad Aggie or a baggie. Ah, get it? Right, no, everybody loves the traditions of Texas A&M, okay? That's why you came to an institution like this, because there are many other places that could offer similar things, but they don't offer that campus cultural piece as well. Well, what we are charged to do is making sustainability a part of what the Texas A&M experience is from a tradition standpoint, so that people think when they go to a football game, or when they go to Midnight Yell, or when they go to Aggie Mustard, you know, how can I be mindful of carpooling together? How can I be mindful of making sure that I'm inviting someone who doesn't look like me, because they didn't get the opportunity to experience this before, but they're important to me and I want them to be there. Or when I'm carrying in my water bottle, encouraging somebody else to bring their reusable water bottle with them. Those small things connect back to the tradition and the culture of Texas A&M, and they make things that seem really difficult to change suddenly so easy to impact, right? And that's a big piece as well. Okay? And then the really cool thing about Texas A&M is because we are so large, we also have access to so many resources here. So I've listed a few of them. These are not you know, by any stretch an exhaustive list, right? We have lots of different staff members and units and departments across the university setting that are actively contributing to sustainability education across campus, which is great. Okay, so we're going to cover just a little bit of one topic area that I think is really important for us. And I know traditionally when we think about sustainability, we're thinking about the environmental side, and I want you guys to shift gears a little bit. Okay, we're going to talk for the next few minutes about the social sustainability side, because that's important for how we connect with each other and make sure that we don't forget that not everybody has the same experiences and background as we do. And it's not that we're tolerating or allowing them to have the space, but we're also providing the opportunity for them to feel heard and celebrated on this campus as well. Okay? So I've put up a definition here, which is otherness. Do I have somebody who's willing to read what the definition of otherness is? Let's read it loud so that way the camera can hear you too.
The quality or fact of being different.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. What was your name?
JC.
JC. Everybody give JC a round of applause.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. When you think of other, what do you immediately think of? What comes to mind for you?
Different.
Okay. What else? Anybody ever filled out a survey before that asked you to list your identity groups? And there's always something at the bottom that's the catch-all called other. Okay, when you look at that line or that box, what do you think? I promise it's not a trick question. Yes?
I mean, for me, when I see like a small box that says other, it kind of feels like it's covering up or hiding all the parts of me that they haven't generalized.
Okay.
So like, you know, there's a big they that's like, okay, here's some categories that we think are important, and then literally everything else about you does not matter.
Yep, sure. So in that moment, it feels like your identity or what you may affiliate to isn't as important as the other groups that were listed with their actual name there, right? Okay, great. What else? Any other ideas? I used to be a teacher, so I'm great with silence, y'all. I can stay here. I trust me, I'm the only thing standing between you and food. So keep that in mind.
True.
Okay, think about this. We talked about campus traditions, right? The opportunity for us to engage in certain things. Okay, in those campus traditions, so when we think about Texas A&M coming from an all-male military background in the Corps, okay, when we make the transition from being in that type of environment to where we are now, guess who felt alienated as they started coming into this campus as another group?
Women.
Women. Absolutely. Who else?
People with non-military background.
People with a non-military background or an interest in the military. Okay, not everybody has that affinity to go into the military. Who else? Say it.
Minorities.
Absolutely, people of color, right? I saw you mouthing it, Brianna. Okay, be bold, share these pieces, right? So when A&M started in the South, we had a lot of ideology that was here that said, what we are looking for is everybody to be uniform in not only what they're wearing, but also what they look like and where they come from and what their background is. And if you don't fit into those power groups, those majority groups, then you're considered another. And you're not necessarily able to access the same pieces as what everybody else could, okay? So as we continue to go forward, this is kind of something that I want you to keep in the back of your mind, okay? Social identities reflect the ways individual and groups internalize established social categories within their society, okay? These aspects are all created based on how people interact with one another. Okay, so cultural or ethnic identities are formed based on how their upbringing is, where they're located geographically speaking, the access that they have to certain resources and that sort of thing. All of those pieces are created socially. Okay, gender identities are created socially. Okay, guys are always supposed to like blue. They're always supposed to keep their hair cut short. They're never supposed to have earrings. Those sorts of things. Those are all gender identities. Okay, class identities. If you're rich, you should be driving a nice car, you should be living in a good house, you should be caring about yourself, you shouldn't be thinking about other people. If you're poor, you're scraping together. What does poor look like? Do you live in the slums, in the ghetto, whatever it may be? Those are all things that are constructed based on class. Okay? Age identities, when we think about older people, we think they're slow, they don't listen very well, they've lost touch with reality, they're not good at technology, those sorts of things. Okay, these are all things that have been created based on the social context, right? Based on interactions and opportunities that we've been able to see from these groups, we create that piece. Okay, and those social categories shape our ideas about how we see other groups and how they work together in our society. Okay? All right, so I've got a really, really, really long paragraph here, and normally I would have us break this up and read it together, but I'm going to read it for you. And what I want you to do is, as I read it for you, I want you to think about one or two things that stand out to you as being important here. Okay? And at the end, I'm going to ask you what stood out to you. Okay? It says, social identities are relational. Groups typically define themselves in relation to others. This is because identity has little meaning without the other. So by defining itself, a group defines others. Identity is rarely claimed or assigned for its own sake. These definitions of self and others have purposes and consequences. They are tied to rewards and punishment, which may be material or symbolic. There is usually an expectation of gain or loss as a consequence of identity claims. This is why identities are contested. Power is implicated here, and because groups do not have equal powers to define both self and the other, the consequences reflect those power differentials. Often notions of superiority and inferiority are embedded in particular identities. Okay? So in looking at that paragraph, what are some things that immediately stand out to you? Yes, sir.
How social identities are tied to rewards and punishment.
Absolutely. Okay? So those groups that we just talked about a minute ago, and by no means is that an exhaustive list either, there are certain rewards for being in certain positions within those groups. Okay, so we talked about classism. There are certain rewards for being in the upper class versus being in the middle class or being in the lower class, right? Okay, there are certain rewards for looking a certain way in certain environments than not looking a certain way. Okay, great. What else? Yes?
Power.
Power. Talk to me about power. What does that mean?
Exactly.
I thought that was something that I saw on Sunday morning when the Power Rangers came on TV.
Oh, Brandon. I guess the fact that different groups, especially like if we want to use the example of racial and marginalized minority communities, some groups have more power than others to be involved in community development or different things that are going to be important to them as people.
Absolutely. So power is established in so many different ways. Sometimes it's overt, meaning that power is established through things like business and government, things that control big pools of money or businesses or resources. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's covert. If I were to walk down the street in the middle of night through my neighborhood, okay, people aren't going to second guess me. Okay, I look like I belong in my neighborhood. So that means that I have a privileged identity. I have a power identity in that moment. Okay, but if there was someone who was walking through my neighborhood who was black or who was Latino, they're going to have a different understanding. When other people look at that person and say, why are you here? Or do they call the police? And they say, this person's loitering around here. That looks very different. Okay, and that's because we have established some of those norms, culturally speaking, based on that identity group that say, well, this person fits in this environment and this person does not. Okay, and sometimes, like I said, it's overt and sometimes it is covert. Okay, what else? What else stands out in this? Yes?
Identity is rarely claimed or assigned for its own sake.
Yeah. So then what's the point?
Like it automatically puts you like in this power structure.
Exactly, right? And so without us even thinking about those things, unless we're consciously aware, we're never going to know how we can be an advocate for those that are not in that authority group or who are considered an other. And those who are in the other group are never going to feel like they have an advocate to help them, right? Because the system has created this opportunity for different groups to be identified and to be segregated or separated out, right? And so that's a piece. When I walk into the room as a white Christian male, I have to understand that my privilege comes with all of those pieces. And if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do in order to be an advocate for somebody else, nobody's going to question me. Nobody's going to remove my access or tell me I can't participate. But that's not the same for every other person who has different affiliations as well. So keep that in mind as you kind of go through this piece. That's very important. Okay, we're going to skip this video. It's really good. If we have time later, I'll show it to you. Okay. So you're in a small group here, all right? I want you guys to read through this case study, and I would like for you to take like maybe 1 or 2 minutes to talk about how you would respond in the situation based on what you're reading here, and then we'll share these back out, okay? So read through this, take a second, talk about it in your group, and then we'll share back. No, you're good. Just
What if it's I didn't say that.
easier then.
It's a lot easier.
They're probably
Yeah.
it's like 72. I don't know what's going on. It's 100 degrees outside. Like if you do right.
Yeah, but you have to. Yeah. I'm curious. Put yourself in a situation.
What do I do?
Yes.
Okay, y'all. So we're going to bring it back real quick. So what did you guys decide upon? Or what did you talk about in your groups about how you would respond to the situation? Yes?
So we talked about going and getting like the ushers.
Okay.
Like, hey, those people,
Yeah,
deal with them.
absolutely. Was there a reason why you decided with that process versus directly confronting those people?
Well, we talked about like just turning around and be like, can you not? And then they were like, well, if they're not afraid to do that in a stadium of 100,000 people, what makes them afraid of you?
Sure.
So we were like, let's not deal with it.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things that I think we forget about a lot of times. Your ability to be a bystander and to intervene in a situation doesn't mean that you jump in the middle and say, everybody stop, you're wrong. Okay? That's great, but you're probably going to get punched in the face, right? And I don't know about you, but I value my face, okay? So you're completely correct. A great option for you is to say, you know what, I know that there are people of authority that wear uniforms and have badges and carry guns, right? I'm going to pass that information along to somebody who has one of those things and have them come up and have some conversation with whoever this person may be about how they're impacting those that are around them. Absolutely. What else? Say it. Brianna?
Well, I was doing chef pieces. So you,
Oh, okay, good. I thought you were speech bubbling something out. Beautiful. What else? What's another way that we can address or respond to the situation?
I mean, if nobody else is going to contribute, I liked the idea because I am a confrontational person, and I'm going to use my privilege of being a woman and not being attacked most of the time. And nobody's going to hit a girl. At least you know.
That's
So,
fair.
I'll
Absolutely.
take it, and I'll say hey,
You gonna punch this?
and I would tell them you're not embodying what it means to be an Aggie.
Boom.
If we stand for respect and
Yep.
integrity,
Yep.
and if you're going to say stuff like that, then are you actually an Aggie?
Absolutely. Nothing hurts an Aggie more when you come to them and say, you're not living out the core values. Are you really an Aggie? And you're like, oh, man. They cover their ring. You're like, no, I'm not an Aggie. You know? But it hurts, right? Because you're questioning something that is so a part of their identity. I would say so many of the folks that walk around this campus, when we ask them to introduce themselves, they're saying, hey, I'm a student at Texas A&M. This is what my major is. This is where I'm from. They're doing their Aggie introduction that they learned in fish camp, right? Okay, being an Aggie is a big part of so many of our students' identity across campus. Okay, so if we confront them on, is this espousing the idea of we are the Aggies are we? True to each other as Aggies can be? How do I feel like I'm part of that group that you're true to? If you're telling me, based on what you're yelling out, that that's another group, right? And I belong in that group because I look like that person. Okay? So keep that in mind. Not saying that we all have the ability to confront. Okay? So I appreciate what our group set up here. But what we cannot do is what? Exactly. We cannot just stand by and say, it's no big deal, right? And that's exactly how this particular piece plays into sustainability. Because so many people in those power groups have been able to steamroll and dictate how our society looks based on those identities that we discussed before. And we had nobody in any of those other groups that, number one, had advocates to be able to help them that were from those privileged areas, or a voice, number two, because they were so far pushed away. And so if there's nobody challenging it, then the system stays the same. Okay? Who here went to the climate strike just a couple of days ago? Okay? If nobody says something, are people going to change our practices when it comes to the oil industry and drilling and those sorts of things?
Nope.
No. And I looked at the Texas A&M Facebook page with the information about the climate strike, and it was horrendous. It was absolutely atrocious. And I literally wanted to drop this right there and say, we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be, and then literally just drop the mic. Okay? Because what they said about you as current students, from their lens as a former student, I'm a former student here, I thought was so despicable. Y'all owned them. Y'all taught them about what needs to be happening from an advocate lens, not the other way around. Okay? And you have just as much of ability to be able to do that for groups on this campus as you do for those folks that are trolling on social media as well. Okay? So we're going to end here. I have several other pieces to talk about, but we don't have time, and I know that you guys are hungry. So we're going to shift over into to dinner. But I did want to say thank you guys again for being here. Thank you for having this kind of conversation. This is where truly sustainability change impacts advocacy, education and advocacy coming together. And as long as you're willing to do some of these things with some help, and guess what? Everybody in this room is here with you. All those people in the back with the green shirts with the Texas A&M logo are here for you and supporting you. Okay, you're not alone in these pieces. Okay, but this is the stuff that's actually going to make a difference, y'all, and it starts with you. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. We're going to transition over to dinner. So I wanted to give you guys just a couple of instructions for this. There are some sandwich trays that are over there where we have Jimmy John's for tonight. We have sandwich trays that are over there with mixed sandwiches on those trays. And then for anybody who is vegan or anybody who is gluten intolerant, come see me specifically. Okay, I've got a separate option for y'all so that you can get your dinner taken care of and everything from there. But thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.